just a refresher of our KRONOS information. Hopefully, over the last several weeks, I know there's been a lot of issues. A lot of people have had some problems getting into the system and that kind of thing, but hopefully you're all able to get in and ready for the go live. We do have a go live for our Group 2 that starts on July 18th. That's a week from this Friday. So that will be our first group that's going live. The next group will go a week later on the 25th. And then the final group will go live on the 27th. So again, it just depends on which group you're in as to when you're going live. But until that time, you'll still be getting paid out of your current system. So some of the things I want to go over today, again, just as a reminder, a refresher for some of the things that we went over way back when we started this, I think back in May, early May. Just want to go over getting into the system, some of the things employees will see, and then, of course, your role and responsibilities. Now, I understand that many of you are unable to get into what we call our KRONOS Navigator. And so what I am going to do today, although I will touch on the KRONOS Navigator, I am going to be going through most of what I show you. I'll go through what we call our classic KRONOS, which should be very familiar to you because your current system that you are getting paid out of today is basically a KRONOS program that was modified for your purposes. So with that said, I'm going to log into, like I said, I'm going to log into our classic view first to show you what an employee will see when they log in so that we can walk through some of the things that an employee will do. Most of your employees will be doing what we call timestamp. So I'm going to log in as an employee in both systems, both Classic and Navigator, so that you can see how an employee will log in, what they will see, and how they will go in and do timestamp as well as be able to look at their time card. Now, throughout this entire process today, please feel free to ask questions at any time. I kind of like to keep this open so that, if something comes up and I touch on something you have a question about or whatever, please feel free to do that. Again, just *6 to mute your phone and then a *6 to unmute your phone if you have a question to ask. So, as I said, I'm going to first log into our what we call classic KRONOS here, and I'll log in first, as I mentioned, as an employee so that you can see what an employee will see when they are trying to log into the system and do what we call a timestamp. So an employee, when they log into our classic view, this is what they will see. They pretty much will just deal with the information or go to some of the links under My Information. And as you can see here, timestamp is the first link. So when an employee is clocking in for the beginning of their shift or at the end of their shift, they would log into KRONOS and come in here and click on timestamp, which will then open up the timestamp screen. It'll open up the timestamp screen here, and it's going to tell them the date and time, and again, depending on what time zone one is in, it will give them the time for the current time zone that they're in. And all an employee has to do is come in here and click on Record Timestamp. They'll get another screen that basically will let them know that this is what time they clocked in. All they need to do is come up here and click on the home link up here. It will bring them back basically to their home page. They can then go in immediately and look at their time card by clicking on My Time Card. And they can come in here and see where the punch is. Now, if the punch isn't here, all they need to do is click on Actions, Record, Refresh, But here is the timestamp for the 1305 stamp that they just did today. So they can come in, they can also look at their time card, they can see if they have any missed punches so that they can let you know if something needs to be corrected on their time card. They can, if they see missed punches, they can come to that edit log and either send it to you or email you some information, or however you're setting that edit log up. Any red boxes, of course, indicate missed punches. So an employee can log in, look at their time card at any time during the day, and then any time they want to leave, all they have to do is click on the log off.
I've got
to our classic KRONOS as an employee, so that you can see what an employee will see when they log in to do their what we call timestamps, so that they can clock in and out for their shift as well as for their meals. So they're going to log in, and when they log into KRONOS, and they're in classic KRONOS, under My Information, this is where they'll find timestamp. All they need to do is click on that link that says times, or that indicates timestamp, and then they will come to the timestamp screen. It will give them the time, and then, of course, the time zone that they're in. It will list that accordingly. And then all they need to do, this is something they would do when they come in the morning, when they go to lunch, come back from lunch, and go home at the end of the day. Since all of your employees, other than exempts, should be clocking in and out for their meals, they would be doing this basically 4 times a day for the most part. So all they do is when they get to this screen, after clicking on the link for timestamp, all they need to do is click Record Timestamp. This will then give them basically a confirmation screen that says, you know, your time has been recorded. You click the home button here, they can come back to their home page. They can click on My Time Card to pull up their time card to make sure that the punch was indicated as it is here. If it's not here when they come to look at their screen, all they need to do is do Actions, refresh, and then that would pull in the punch. They can also look at their time card at any time to see if they have anything that's missing on their time card that needs to be corrected, so that they can get that information to you, so that you can get it fixed for them. And then once they're done in here, all they need to do is log out. Now that's in the classic view. When they log into what we call the navigator view, and as I was saying earlier, I know some of you are not able to get into navigator, so that's kind of why I'm going to go back and forth here a little bit, so that you can see what employees will see if they are able to log in to Navigator. So again, they would log in using their username and password. The system will load accordingly. Again, they will see their time card as soon as they log in, so even if they're just logging in here to look at their time card, the first thing they'll see in the Navigator view is their time card. If they need to timestamp for either going to lunch or going home for the end of the day or coming back from lunch, whatever the case may be, all they need to do is they can click on the header of this, what we call widget, and just move and drag it into the center. It will open up the timestamp screen as well. And again, all they need to do is click on Record Timestamp, and it will again tell them that their time was recorded at 13:16 Central Time. They then just move their time card back into the center. If again, as I mentioned, if it's not there, all they need to do is do a Actions, refresh, and it will then pull in the punch. All right? So any questions with how an employee basically clocks in or out using the timestamp? So basically that's the only thing that employees would really need to be going in here for, is to look at their time card and or to be doing their timestamp at the beginning or at the end of their shift or during their lunch period. Now, most of the training I'll do today will be in the classic view, since that is something that you're pretty much used to. So I will log in as a manager here in just a minute. But I also want to mention that there is a small group. I think we have about 300 people, of which I'm not sure if that includes any of your employees, that are also using the phone system. That just means that the employees will be calling into the phone to clock in or out, and they use a 1 to clock in, a 9 to clock out, and then they also use a 3 or a 4 if they're going out to a meal or coming back from a meal. And that's all they need to do on the phone. They also, even after clocking in on the phone, can come in and log into the system to see if their punches were accepted on the time card, or to make sure that the punches show up on the time card. Now, with the phone system, it may not be as quick as the timestamp. There may be a few minute lag time in there, but for the most part, they should be able to do their clocking in and so on the phone, and they could then log into the system and look at their time card to see if the punches were accepted. And since we kind of talked a little bit about lunch, I'll just remind everyone that I know that CHS in the past has basically said that you have a 20-minute lunch period, but when you're on the KRONOS system in CHI, basically starting on the 18th for some groups, on the 18th of July, know that that meal period is going to be 30 minutes, or that the employee should be taking 30 minutes or more for a meal. And as we go into here and start looking at some time cards, we'll come across some examples of what happens when somebody clocks out but doesn't take a full 30 minutes. And you probably, throughout the parallels that we've been in for the last several weeks, you've probably noticed that short break indicator on the time card with the little red box around punches, which indicates that they've not taken a full 30 minutes. That also shows that they are actually getting an extra 30 minutes at the end of the day. So if they're supposed to go to lunch for 30 minutes and they are only clocked out for 28 minutes, they will end up, on an 8-hour day, they would actually end up with 8.5 hours for that day. So as I mentioned, I'm going to log in here as a manager just to show you what you'll be doing in here now, and you probably are used to doing it over the last several weeks since we've been doing the parallels here. As I mentioned, this particular view that I'm going to be going through today is what we call our classic view, and should look very much like what you're used to seeing in your current timekeeping system. Because it is a KRONOS program that you're using, it's just been rebranded using the ADP branding. But for the most part, you still have the tabs across the top here. This is how you move around between your different screens and so on. So if you're using the classic view of KRONOS because you're not able to get into the navigator view, this is what you would see. If you're logging in as a manager into the navigator view, then it will be a little different, but the screens that you'll use to edit will be the same screens. You'll have your reconcile time card screen, as you'll see here once it loads. Here's the reconcile time card screen. The only difference is it doesn't have the tabs across the top, but it looks exactly like the screen on our classic view here, showing the same list of people, just in a different interface that you'll be using. All right. So going back to the classic view, we'll just talk about again what some of the items are here on the screen. When we do log into KRONOS, I believe that you're your reconciled time card screen, as we call it, is what will load for you. It will pull up all of the employees you have access to, and it will give you some quick information letting you know what hours someone has worked, how many PTO hours, perhaps any overtime hours, and so on. Our reconciled time card screen here will always default to current pay period, but under the time period area, you do have the ability to change that to either a previous pay period. You can also do a range of dates, or if you wanted to look at just a week-to-date information or last week's information, you can pull it up that way as well. Now, your range of dates will be very helpful to you once you get into the system and are able to, after you've been in the system for several months, if at some time somebody, let's say in December, they come to you and they say, I don't think I got paid for PTO in October. Well, you can always come in here to either Reconcile Time Card or any one of the screens that you can come into, and you can always do a range of dates, and you can go back into that October time frame and pull up that person's time card. So you do have the ability to go back into the past, so to speak, if there are any questions about time cards. Also, if you needed to run reports for something in the past, you can also run reports. Just keep in mind that whenever your go live is, and again, this is for those in Group 2, which start on the 18th of July, all that information will be from that day forward. We're not pulling in any old information from your current system, so it will just have information in here from basically your go live dates of the 18th of July, the 25th of July, or the 27th of July. And if you needed information before that period of time, then that would be something payroll could get for you out of the old system. But you are able to change the time period here as well. You can also sort on any of these columns. So for instance, what this information gives me here is it's showing me that I have some people with missed punches. And whenever I see check marks in my column for missed punches, that's telling me I have some employees that need their time cards fixed so that they're going to be paid correctly. Because if they have a check mark under the missed punches, and that's telling me that their time card is not complete, there's hours missing, and so on. And those missed punches have to be fixed before the end of the pay period so that they do get paid, because we cannot leave any missed punches on anyone's time card. And as I said, we can sort by any of these columns, and if I wanted to, instead of having to go through here and selecting the people that I have missed punches for and maybe scrolling all the way down depending on the size of group I have here, I can sort on this column of missed punches by clicking in the header one time, which will take all those check marks and put it basically at the bottom of my list of people. If I click it one more time, it will bring everyone with missed punches to the top, so that now I have everyone that has missed punches right there at the top, and I can just select those people. And depending on what I'm going in for, I can either select the people here by just dragging and clicking and highlighting those people that I need, because those people do have missed punches. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have other edits that I have to do on other people's time cards. I may have to add pay codes like PTO or vacation in your case, or on-call, bonus shift, that kind of thing. So the important thing is that if you're looking for just missed punches, to fix those first, you can sort them and bring them to the top. But know that if you have other edits that need to be done, you would most likely be using that edit log that you've probably been using over the last several weeks to get the edits that need to be done. And I should have had one of those pulled up here. Let me quickly pull that up here just to make sure everyone knows what I'm talking about here. And this is the edit log. Rhonda has put this out on your home page under some header for forms or job aids. This, of course, is something that you probably have been using throughout the parallels. If not, you're going to want to start using them with the go-live dates. This is what employees should be using to either send you information that needs to be fixed on their time card, or if you have a group of people that work in an office, it can be in a notebook that can be put in a notebook, and every pay period you start a new sheet, and employees can go into this lounge or wherever the edit log may be, and they can fill this out accordingly whenever they need something fixed on their time card. Again, this is something that is done by each pay period. Each pay period you start a new sheet, and these have to be kept for 3 years. You need to keep 2 previous years plus the current year. So basically at this point, everything you've been using up to your go-live dates for your current system, you should have everything up to basically the middle to the end of July of 2014. And then you should also have all of 2013 and all of 2012. And they should be filed somewhere, scanned somewhere, saved somewhere, so that if the Department of Labor comes out and needs to do any audits for any reason, they have access to those and they're readily accessible for those people that come out. It could also be for internal audits. HR could be doing audits. They would need to see your edit logs. It could be some internal CHI auditors that come out. So these are things that need to be kept by pay period, and they need to be kept basically 2 previous years plus your current year. Okay. You can also, besides, if you don't necessarily have to use the edit log, emails are acceptable. If employees have something that they've missed on their time card, they can send you an email. My suggestion, however, is that you print this out every pay period, and you put in here, as it states here, your beginning date of the pay period and end date of the pay period, so that you know what time frame you have things saved for, and that if there are emails that are sent to you for things that need to be fixed, you can print those out and attach them to this edit log. You don't have to rewrite them on the edit log. You just keep those emails just like it was an edit log, because those are just as good as an employee's signature, because if you are using these to actually write on, like I said, if they're kept in a notebook for employees to use, if they have access to an office where they can write any mispunches and so on here, they should be signing this as well. If they're sending an email, then that email signature is just as good as a handwritten signature. So that's why you want to print those off and attach them to this every pay period, and then file those somewhere by pay period. Again, my suggestion is that you can go get an accordion file that's basically either 1 to 26 or A to Z, and keep that. Since there's 26 pay periods in a year, you can file those by pay period by either A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, or however you want to label those. But if you have something like that, if you're keeping actual paper copies of that, that's one way. If you're scanning them and saving them to a share file, that's fine. And that is something that if you're going to scan them, they should be put on a share file, not on your personal computer, because if somebody comes in and needs to see them and you're not there that day, they wouldn't be able to get to them if they're on your personal computer, or even the work computer, unless they're on a share drive that somebody else can get to print them off if they needed to have those. Okay? Any questions with the edit log? All right. So with that said, let's go back here. I'm going to pull up this group of people because those are the ones that have missed punches, but as I mentioned, there could be others that I have to edit for. Like I said, I have to add pay codes like shift bonus select these people, all I need to do is come up here and click on time card if I'm in the classic view. Once I'm here, anytime I see a big red box, that's indicating to me that it's a missed punch. And I should have some information from the employee letting me know what time that what needs to go in there to fix that punch for them. Now in this case, it looks like they were going to lunch. They went out, they clocked in the morning, left at lunch at 11:30 basically, forgot to clock back in, and then they left at 2:30. So if I come here and see this missed punch, I need to go to my edit log or look at an email and see what time they told me. If I don't have that information from that employee, then I need to go to the employee, call the employee, have them send me an email, whatever the case may be, so that I can get this edit done. And I should be trying to come in here every day. I realize that's probably, maybe too hard for some of you to do, because I realize that KRONOS is not your full-time job. You have other things to do besides doing edits on the time card. So if you can't get in here every day, you should try and be getting in here every other day. You should not be waiting until the end of the pay period to be doing any type of edits that need to be done on a time card. The thing is, if you waited until the end of the pay period and we're 2 weeks into it and you have to go back almost 2 weeks to find out when somebody forgot to punch in, if they don't remember, or if it's because it's been too long, that's why if you wait too long, then that could be a problem with them trying to get you the correct information. So if you're in here every day or every other day, you're able to make sure that the people that have missed punches are filling out that edit log, sending you whatever emails. You're getting that information as quickly as possible from that employee. So with that said, I would be looking here to see when Darren clocked in from lunch. Now, if he's in the office and I'm able to go ask him, I could go and ask Darren, what time did you punch in? And I would make sure that he fills out the edit log for me. If he's not in the office, I would either call him and ask him to send me an email, or I would ask him, if you're using these edit logs, if you're sending these edit logs out to your employees and they're filling them out and maybe sending them in to you every couple days, then make sure that he sends in the edit log to you so that you can get this punch fixed. So I would be looking at the edit log. I would see that he said he got back at 12, so all I need to do is key in 12 here. Now, the system will always assume AM unless you tell it differently. And since 12, in KRONOS' case, KRONOS understands that that is 12 p.m., I don't have to do anything when it comes to entering the 12 o'clock here. Obviously, if he said, well, I didn't get back till 12:15, then I could just do 12:15. And I don't need to put in the semicolon or anything like that. I can just key in 12, 12:15, or whatever time they're telling me. I just need to make sure, and I won't show you in this example, but I'll show you in another one, where you need to be careful when you're entering time in here, that you do make sure that if it's PM, you indicate to the system that it is PM. So I'm just going to say that he wrote on the edit log that he got back at 12. I make sure that, is there anything else that needs to be edited here? I don't see that. I'm just going to tab off of here for a minute so that you can see what happens when I do. When I do, this still has the big red box around here showing that it's a missed punch because I haven't saved anything yet. Up here in the upper right-hand corner, whenever I see the name of the screen I'm on is red, and in this case it's red with a little asterisk in front of it, this is indicating to me that I have unsaved items on the time card. And so I need to either save it before I go to the next one, or if I wasn't paying attention and say, okay, well, that's all I need to do for Darren, and if I come up here and go to the next employee, you'll see that the system will say, hey, wait a minute, do you want to save your changes? What do you want to do? You want to save it by clicking yes, no, discard it, or stay on current page by clicking on cancel. I'll just click on cancel here. I put in the 12 o'clock. Before I make sure that before I actually go in and save it, I want to do what I call a pretend save. I come up here to actions, and I do actions, calculate totals. What that's going to do is it's going to show me, did what I entered, is it correct? So I do actions, calculate totals. It shows me now I've got that in there, shows that he's getting paid 8 hours, everything looks fine. I can still see that this hasn't been saved because up in the upper left-hand corner this is still red. Anytime I see that as red, that's telling me that it hasn't been saved. And now that I know that what I've entered is correct, I can click on save, and now I'm good to go. While we're on this screen, let's look at Wednesday. You'll notice that on Wednesday when Darren clocked in and out for lunch, he came in at 7, left at noon, came back at 12:27. I get a red box around there. It says short break. And then he left at 3:30. He's going to end up with an 8.5-hour day. And again, the reason that he will get paid 8.5 hours for that day is because he did not take a full 30 minutes. And that's why I get the red box around his in punch from lunch that he did not take a full 30 minutes. It's very important that you make sure that your employees take the 30 minutes, because throughout the pay period, that extra half hour throughout the week could basically put them into overtime if they work, if they're working a full schedule, so to speak. If they're not taking a full 30 minutes, they will end up with an extra half hour each day. That is something that, if that happens, again, like I said, the policy is they need to be taking a full 30 minutes, and anything less than 30, they will get that extra 30 minutes for the day. I cannot come in here and change that, even if Darren went to his edit log and said, go ahead and change Wednesday the 9th to 12:30. I should not be changing punches. I should not be deleting anyone's punches on anyone's time card, although there is that little gray area where some punches could be deleted if they were like double punches, if somebody didn't know whether they clocked in or not, if they didn't check their time card when they clocked in and they were not sure whether the punch took, so they just went back and did it again, and so now maybe you have a 7:56 punch and an 8 o'clock punch. Now in that instance, before you even delete it though, you would want to talk to the employee and make sure that you have a punch at 7:56 and a punch at 8 o'clock. One punch is going to be an in punch, the next punch is going to be an out punch. So you need to make sure that you check with the employee to make sure that if they were trying to do something, that it gets corrected, and if necessary, it can be deleted, but we should also note it on the edit log why we're deleting that punch. Now in this case, as I said, Darren was only gone 27 minutes. Since he was not gone a full 30, the system is not going to take the 30 minutes out for lunch. We cannot go in and change that so that it takes the 30 minutes out. The only recourse we have is to discuss with Darren what the policy is, let him know that he needs to be gone 30 minutes or more, and that in the future he should look to see what time he clocks out, add 30 minutes to that, and make sure he's not clocking in before that 30 minutes is up. If we were to change that punch, and even though he may say, yeah, it's okay to go ahead and change it, if we did that for our employees throughout the course of several months, year, or whatever, and then something happens where they become disgruntled, and they go to the Department of Labor, and maybe it's a new policy that we've instituted, and they take the policy to the Department of Labor and say, I don't think this is fair, they're making us do this, and the policy just doesn't seem fair to us. Department of Labor looks at the policy and says everything is fine. One employee could say, yeah, but over the last several months, every time I don't get a full 30 minutes, my manager has been changing my punch from my in punch from my lunch so that 30 minutes does come out. Department of Labor doesn't like to hear that we're either deleting or changing punches. They'll probably, especially with something where we're changing someone's time more or less without their permission or taking time away from them, the Department of Labor doesn't like that. They will probably, 99.9% sure, show up at our doorstep, and not only will they be looking at those few people that may have been there and saying, you know, they've been changing my punches, but they will probably be looking at the entire company and making sure that we have not been changing punches and taking away time from an employee. Because all the employee has to say is, well, I had to come back early, or, you know, there was an emergency, or something happened that I just wasn't able to take my full 30. And even though I could pull this up and say, well, according to that edit punch or edit log, the employee said it was okay to change that punch, the Department of Labor, all the employee has to do is say, well, you know, they told me I had to write that on there so they could change it. The Department of Labor will side with the employee. And for every instance that they find where we've made a change to something that is a violation, it's a $10,000 fine for each violation they find, on top of, you know, any overtime that we didn't pay for the employee that may have put them into overtime. And that, again, is another fine for not paying the overtime and so on. So that's why it's very important to be very careful when you make changes to someone's time card, that you're not drastically changing someone's time to either pay them less or take something away from them that they should be getting. Okay. Any questions with that? We'll just go on now to another employee just to take a look at this. And this could be somebody like a person who uses the phone. Because the phones are a little different than the timestamp. When someone timestamps, the system is going to look at the first box that's available. So let's just say if it were Friday. At this point, this employee has nothing on their time card. If this employee is a timestamp employee, the first time they hit the timestamp, it's going to go into the first box available, which is the first in punch. And then, of course, if they timestamp again, it's going to go to the next box, and so on. It's just going to follow through the sequence. But those who use the phones have actual phone codes that tell the system this is an in punch, this is an out punch. And so the system will automatically put those punches according to what the employee enters on the phone. So in this case, it looks like the employee forgot to punch in the morning. But when they clocked out using the 9, then the employee hit the 9, the punch went into the right spot. So we need to find out, when did that employee clock in? The same with Tuesday. When did that employee clock out? Since I have these, hopefully I have something on my edit log, or I have an email from the employee. Again, if I don't have something from the employee, I need to go and contact that employee to get that information. So, what I'm going to do here is, again, I get the email. Actually, I'm going to go to this one first. I get the email that this employee, unfortunately, went home sick at 1 o'clock. And so I'm going to put in 1 o'clock here. Now, here's where that pretend save comes in and helps us a little bit. Because if I were to put 1 o'clock right now, just like that, or even if I did 1 o'clock, okay? If I were to now save this just like this, most likely the employee would not be getting paid correctly. They would actually be getting overpaid. Because I I'm not, at this point, as I mentioned earlier, the system will always assume AM unless I tell it differently. So basically, the system's going to think that I came in at 8 o'clock in the morning and worked until 1 o'clock the next morning if I left it as this. If I was in a hurry and wasn't paying attention to what I just keyed in here, and if I automatically come up here and save it and find out that I have paid them over 20 hours or whatever the case may be, I would have to delete that punch because of the fact that that's not really how long that person worked. But it's going to add extra work for me because I'm going to have to come to an edit log, and I'm going to have to write on here that on 7/8, employee so-and-so, I have to delete the 1 o'clock punch because I entered it wrong. Because there's an audit trail in the time card that's going to show everything that happens in the time card. And if I delete something, it's going to show that it was a deleted punch. And the Department of Labor, like I said, doesn't like to see a lot of deleted punches. Or if we do, they want an explanation as to why. So if you happen to put in something and it's incorrect, and you save it, and you find out it's wrong, then you have to delete it. You should be entering that on this edit log as well. You can just write across here what the issue is. You don't have to stay within the boxes. Okay? But to prevent that extra work, if I were to do this pretend save first, so I do my actions, calculate totals, you'll see that it changes that to 1 a.m. And like I said, the system always assumes AM. Well, I see that that's incorrect. I haven't saved anything, so when I come here and highlight that and hit my backspace key and put in 1P, I haven't deleted anything because it hasn't been saved, so it's not even going to show up as a deleted punch. So by doing that pretend save, you're able to prevent yourself from putting in things incorrectly, getting people paid incorrectly, and then having to do extra work by using the edit log and writing on there that you made the mistake and had to delete the 1 o'clock, the 1 a.m. punch. Once I get that in there, I'm going to do, once again, actions calculate just to make sure. Now everything looks fine. I can now save it. But because this employee went home early, he also, to get paid his 8 hours that day, he requested that he gets PTO for that day or vacation time. We call it PTO on our side. I know you guys have been using vacation. And again, you'll continue to use vacation until we go to CHI Connect, which will be later next year. Now, whenever you have to add pay codes for an employee, we cannot add them on the same line as a punch. If I were to try to come in here and enter PTO in this case for 3 hours, as soon as I enter the pay code and come to the amount, I get an error that says cannot enter a pay code on a line with a punch. So I just click OK. That's what these little arrows are for. As you can see here, it says insert a row. I just click on that. It adds another row. And now what I can do is do PTO and enter 3 here. And I can do my actions, calculate totals, just to see how it comes out. I get my PTO there. I can now save it. And just looking down here at the bottom, I can see I have 5 hours of regular time and 3 hours of PTO or vacation. I would need to fix this punch as well for the employee so that they would be paid correctly. Again, anytime you see those big red boxes, that's what those, obviously those are the missed punches. As you hover over it, it'll tell you whether it's a missed in punch or a missed out punch. And those are things that need to be fixed on the time card. Now, I know there are, you have other pay codes, like I said, on-call hours, some bonus pay that enter those pay codes, obviously those are entered under the pay code column here. The amount is entered here. And one thing I did forget to mention, and I apologize for that, we have a different rounding rule, as you've probably discovered if you were in during the parallels. We use what we call the 15-7 rounding rule. So if somebody comes in and punches in, let's say at 7:54, and they clock out at, and I'm just going to put in here, 4:36 p, the system will actually show these punches, all right? It will show the 7:54 and the 4:36. Whatever the punches were, at whatever the time was that the employees clock in, it will log those times accordingly. But we have what is called basically a 7-minute grace period. Anything 7 minutes before the hour or 7 minutes after the hour will round to the hour. Anything 8 minutes before the hour or 8 minutes after the hour rounds down to the quarter hour. So, like I said, there's a 7-minute grace period, basically. So all the way around the clock is how that works. So anyone that clocks in anywhere between 7:53 and 8:07, the time will show their actual clock-in time, but the system rounds it to either up or down, depending on whether it's 7 minutes before or 8 minutes after, and so on. And you can always tell if you're like wondering, well, how does the system calculate the rounding? All you need to do is come in here and do a double click on the punch, and we come up to this edit punch screen. And here you'll see the actual time of 7:54, and right below it is the rounded time. So what it's telling you here is that this time that they clocked in at 7:54, the system is looking at it as if they got here at 8 o'clock. Okay? So, again, we have that 7-minute period of a 7-minute grace period on either side of the hour, so that if they clock in those 7 minutes before, it's going to round to the hour. And again, you can just double-click on the punch, and it will show you this edit punch, and you can always look at what time it actually was and what the system is rounding it to. So with that said, anytime you need to enter pay codes, they should always be entered in quarter-hour increments. So if this person came in at 8 o'clock, and we'll say that they left at, we'll say 12:15. I'm just going to key in 12:15. Do my actions, calculate totals. That pays at 4 1/4. I'm going to save this. If they then requested PTO for the remainder of the day, that would be 3 hours, 3 1/4 hours of PTO that we would need to give them. So I would add a row, I would add PTO, and I would put in 3.75. So it's all on quarter hours. It's either 3.25, 3.5 for 3 1/2 hours, or 3 3/4 for 3 hours and 45 minutes. Okay? So your pay code edits should always be in quarter-hour increments. And the system will round that 15-7 rounding. It'll round whichever way to the quarter hour, either the hour, quarter after, the half hour, or quarter to. Okay. Any questions with that? I know there are a few groups out there that do department transfers. To do department transfers, if for some reason, let's just say, this particular day here on Tuesday needed to be transferred or floated to another department, all you would do is come down here to the transfer column, and you would click on the down arrow, and you would click on search, and you would click on department here, and you would then scroll through here looking for the department that they transferred to, or you could key in either a name of the department, or if you had the number, the department number, you could key it in here as well. Again, depending, and this isn't your actual, these obviously are not your departments here. This is a training database that I have, so I don't have your actual information in here yet. But if you knew what the department name was, so for instance, let's just say emergency, and I started typing part of the word emergency. I'm going to type in EMER, and then I'm going to put an asterisk or a wild card here. I always need, if I'm only typing in part of a name or part of a department, I need a wild card, and the wild card in this case is the asterisk. I type in part of it, I come here and click on search, and what that does is it would pull up everything that started, in this case, with the EMER, which is the 3 emergency rooms that I happen to have out here in this case. I could then pick one of these departments, or as I mentioned, if I didn't have this here, I could search for my departments here. Sorry, let me do this again. Come back out here and come in here and click on departments, and I could just scroll through here. And once I find the department, or again, I could key in the beginning of the department number, I could then select it, click OK, and then again, I can do a save, and it will then take those 5 hours and float those hours to that department I floated to. And any time you have anything down here under totals and schedules where there's a little X next to it, whenever you have that X, that is indicating to you that that is transferred or floated out of the home department, and those hours will be charged to that department. Now again, I know there's just a few groups that do that, so I didn't know if anybody on the call floated, but if you don't, then you don't need to worry about that. You just worry about entering punches that are missed for employees or pay codes for employees.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
Okay. I have a couple people that I guess probably fall into the 20% rule of the 80-20, where they do work for several other branches. And what we've done previously is they keep track, and then at the end of the weeks, we total out and determine how much of their time should be accounted towards each of those branches. So you're telling me that on this, they actually have to keep it, because they could work on several different branches throughout their course of their day. Right. So
now, and these are hourly employees?
Yes.
Okay. What we could do, you could do it a couple ways, because again, if you needed to charge like out of 80 hours, 60 hours had to go to one department and 20 hours had to go to another department. I mean, the best thing to do is if they are they people that use the phone? Well, actually, you guys aren't doing it there either, so I'm sorry. Eventually, down the road, I have a feeling that we'll initiate the ability for employees to actually do the transfer, not only on the phone, but they could also do it at the timestamp, so that they could actually be transferring when that occurs. But at this point, I know that that's not something that we have the employees doing. You guys are having to do that. What you can do is at the end of the pay period, or however you want to do this, is you can take, and let me just pull one up here, and let me just let's take a week here, and I'm just gonna do a real quick adding of hours here to show you something that can be done. So I have basically, in this case, 40 hours for this week for this employee. And if out of those 40 hours, 20 went one place and 20 went another, what I would have to do is I would have to float them accordingly if this is something that you're supposed to be doing in the system. I don't know if it's something, if you do it in the system today or if you send something to accounting. How do you do it in your system today?
Right now we just attach it to their paper time slip, and we have a spreadsheet that we send down to corporate and tells them this many hours goes to this branch and so many goes to this one and so forth.
Okay.
So I don't know how they're doing it once they get it from that end.
Let me, because I didn't have this question earlier, so let me, what is your name?
Becky Harris.
I'm sorry, what was the first name again?
Becky.
Becky?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me find out if, instead of going into this, let me find out how they want you to do it.
Okay. And my other question is, I guess kind of along the same lines, if you have an hourly person who were to come in and work for a few hours and have to leave for a personal appointment and then still also takes a lunch later in the day, do they make a multiple entry since there's only room for an in and out?
Well, keep in mind that the system will continue adding lines automatically, even though it only shows you like 2 ins and 2 outs.
Okay.
If they came in the morning at 8 o'clock, and at 9 o'clock they had to go to a doctor's appointment, so they clocked out at 9 o'clock. They got back from the doctor's appointment at 9:45, so they clock in. At 1 o'clock they go to lunch, come back at 1:30. The system is going to put in the punches here in these boxes, and then it will add another row automatically and continue to go in.
Okay.
Add the in and outs as necessary. So that's something that the system just does automatically. Okay. So you don't need to worry about that. So yes, they should, if they have to clock in and out multiple times during the day, they should do that, and the system will do it accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take down this information, and I'll find out how Rhonda wants you to do it, and see if have you continue to send that stuff in like you're doing. Where, I mean, obviously you wouldn't send in a timesheet. All you'd have to probably do is send her an email that says, okay, Janice needs 20 hours to this department, 40 hours to this department, and so on. Because it's already going to be in KRONOS the way it should be to the home department, and you may just have to let them know that you need to split whoever hours out accordingly. And I'll find out, and I'll send you an email.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But just so that you know what may happen, because, I mean, this is normally what would happen in CHI world, and even though you will still be getting paid out of your system through sometime next year, which I think you have until July of next year, and then you're going to come on to CHI Connect, which is Lawson, and that's where all the everything will be paid out of. I know that once you go there, they're going to expect employees to be transferred before the time comes into the system or into the payroll system. So what would have to happen here, and we're just going to take these 40 hours for this 1 week. If 25 hours needed to go to one department, I would have to come in here and I would take, and it doesn't matter whether it's the day that they actually worked in it or not, I'm just going to take and look for where I can get 25 hours. And I'm going to have to do some manipulation here, so I'll show you what we have to do. Because I want 25 hours, I'm just going to transfer this in to a department. And I would come in here, I would find the department that it has to go to, and I'm just going to pick a department. I click OK. If to that same department, and you'll see that this area here will save the last 5 transfers that I do. So here's 16 hours, and now I have 24 hours. Those are all going to that same department, but now I need 25 hours. So that means on this next day, I need to take 1 hour and transfer it to this 2553 department. So what I'm going to have to do is I am going to have to do some manipulation here. I've added some rows. Whenever I do transfers, if I have to do them manually, I have to I should only be entering in punches, because the system will automatically put an out punch for me, and you'll see what I mean by that. So here I have these first 3 days, which is 24 hours, going to this 2553 department. I need 1 hour on Thursday to go to the 2553 department. So I'm going to say from 8 to 9, this employee is going to work in the 2553 department. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that department one more time. Now, it's not for the whole day. I want to say that at 9 o'clock, because now the remaining 15 hours that I have for that week needs to go to another department. So at 9 o'clock, which is when that 25th hour ends, I need to now transfer the rest of these hours to another department. So I'm going to put in 9 a.m. here. The system already knows that's 9 a.m. Now I'm going to transfer these hours into another department. I'm going to transfer the rest of that day's hours into the department of 4700. And Friday's hours are going to go to 4700. And that will give me 15 hours to the 4700 department and 25 hours to the 2553 department. Now, I only entered the 9 o'clock time here, where they're transferring to the 4700, because I already have the out punch here that's already there for the employee. I only want to show from 8 to 9 on Thursday that it went to the 2553 department. I'm going to do my actions, calculate totals, and here you'll see where the system created this purple punch, which we call a phantom punch or system-generated punch, because the system stopped the transfer of the 2553 department at 9 o'clock when I transferred the employee into that 4700 department at 9 o'clock. And now the rest of the week is transferred out. And if I now save this, you'll see here, actually, I guess 4700 was their home department. But you'll see down here that 2553 department has the 25 hours. Now, the reason this is showing 23 and a half hours is because these hours up here, let me look at this. Unfortunately, I picked the wrong, I shouldn't have picked 4700 because that's the employee's home department. But again, that's okay. If I were to just take daily here, if I change this all to daily and hover or highlight each day, this is showing me down here in the lower left-hand corner for that Monday, 8 hours is going to the 2553 department. And so it is on Tuesday and Wednesday. When I get to Thursday, here's where it splits it out to the 1 hour that went to the 553 department and the 7 hours that went to the 4700 department. And then on Friday, again, 8 hours to 4700. And I guess what I could do is instead of doing 4700, maybe it'll be better if I did. I'll just pick a different department here and it'll show it better. So here now, if we look, here I have the 25 hours that went to the 2553 and there's the 15 hours that went to the 4152 department. So it is extra work. I'm not sure if that's what you'll have to do, but it would be something like this that you would have to do. Is you'd have to pick a group of days to add up to the number of hours that has to go to this department, and then you'd have to pick the other group that goes to the other department. And if you had to do it to 3 different departments, then of course you'd have to calculate it out accordingly.
That's not so bad. I just wanted to make sure that every 15 or 30 minutes when they, switched between departments, that they weren't having to clock in and out all the time. So.
No, and here's again, like I said, you don't have the ability on timestamp or phones right now. Well, actually, on timestamp they could. They could go to timestamp to clock into the next department that they're clocking into, and they wouldn't clock out. They would just clock into the next department. And that's why you only enter an in punch when you manually have to do it, because you don't want to clock out of one department and then clock into the next. You just clock in to each department that you're going to. The system, obviously, then when you go to lunch, you have to clock out and clock back in. But you would, if it's just throughout the day, kind of like this, I would just clock in, and whenever I'm going to the next department, I just clock into the next department.
Okay.
But at this point, I don't know that they're having you do that, because I know on the phones they can't transfer at this time. They can transfer on the timestamp, because when they log into timestamp, they can actually go in and timestamp into a new department. But I don't know if that's what they want you to do or not. So I'll ask this question of Rhonda how they want it done, and then I'll let you know.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions with that? One other thing, just while we're on a time card, doesn't matter which time card we're on, you'll notice that we have this little X here that does say delete a row. We should really never, ever use that delete row button except for exempt employees. And I'll show you and talk about exempt employees here in just a second. But even though it's there, we on an hourly employee, I really should never be deleting entire rows of punches for an employee. Again, basically when an employee clocks and any time a punch shows up on a time card, that basically, for the most part, is set in stone and should never be changed or deleted. Other than that exception where I said, okay, somebody may come in if they went to the phone or the timestamp, and let's say they clocked in at 7:55. They didn't go and look to see if their punch took, and then they're like, oh, I didn't see if that screen came up to let me know if it recorded my timestamp. So instead of going to look at their time card, they just log back in and they hit another punch a couple minutes later, and now they have a punch like this, and then at the end of the day, their time card may look like this. Because you have an in punch at 7:55, an out punch at 7:57, and then an out punch at 4:30. Now, in this case, you're kind of looking at that, and it's like, okay, there's 2 minutes in between. What were they trying to do? You would want to talk to Janice or the employee and say, okay, I see you have a 7:55 and a 7:57. What was going on? Or maybe if they do look at their time card, they say, oh, darn, I double punched or something, and they write on the edit log, please delete the 7:57 punch, it was a double punch or something like that. Then you can delete it because you have it written on there. Or if they didn't write it and you go up to the employee and say, okay, I see a 7:55 and a 7:57. What's going on? And they say, oh, yeah, I forgot, I didn't know if my punch took, so I punched it again, so that must be what happened. They should either send you an email or write it on the edit log and say, delete the 7:57 because it's a double punch. In that case, you can do something like that, and you can delete the punch because it was a double punch. But I shouldn't come in here and delete the entire row just because that one punch is wrong. So I can delete this. I don't need to change anything else, because once I delete this, if I do my actions calculate totals, you'll notice that the system moves everything over the way it's supposed to be. And then I can save it. Okay. So even though you have the ability to delete rows of punches, don't use that. The only place you really are going to use that is for an exempt employee. Right? And again, you're going to go through here and fix everyone's time card that needs to be fixed that has a missed punch. And again, trying to get in there every day or every other day to fix those missed punches. Again, try not to wait till the end of the pay period to do it. If you're waiting till the end of the week, that's fine. Just don't wait till the end of the pay period to do two weeks worth of missed punches or edits that need to be done. Because there is a time limit that you have. Things have to start getting done, and to get payroll processed. Right now, because you're doing all your payroll in house, your time limit. You have until the end of the day or whatever to get all your punches in and so on. Just know that sometime next year, when you go to CHI Connect, which is when we will start processing payroll for you, everything has to be done at 10 o'clock in the morning after the pay period is ended, and we have to have all that information by 2 o'clock in the afternoon so that we can process payroll. So right now you don't have to worry about that probably, because I know you guys are, you all have your time frames now within CHS. But once you come over to CHI, just know sometime next year, before July of next year, you will have to start getting done before 10 o'clock after the pay period is ended. I know your payrolls are different. Eventually you're going to be going to one payroll, but right now, whenever your pay period ends, like on that Thursday after the Friday pay period begins, you have so much time on that Friday to get things done, I believe. So just know that right now you can stick with your current schedule, but somewhere down the line, things are going to change after next year. Okay. That's why you don't want to keep waiting until the end of the pay period to get your edits done. Start working towards, working on this either every other day or at least once a week so that you can get these edits done before the pay period comes to an end. Now we talked about anytime we have to add pay codes of any kind on a row, we always have to add the row for punches to enter pay codes on the same day of other punches and so on, just so that you are aware of that. But really, you're going to be entering missed punches and pay codes for the most part. So you really have as long as the employees are clocking in and out correctly, hopefully you won't have that many edits to do. Them to use the tools correctly, then hopefully they'll use the tools correctly. You'll have less punches that you'll need to fix. Now, one thing I do want to show you is what an exempt time card looks like. And I'm going to sort here and find my salaried employees here. I'm going to pull up a couple here. An exempt time card, this is what all exempts will look like. Now, all exempts will be paid automatically 80 hours of pay period. Now, if you're not an 80-hour exempt or you have exempts that aren't full-time exempts, then those schedules will need to be adjusted when they get loaded into the system. We'll talk about schedules in just a little bit, but all exempts will be given an 8 to 4 schedule Monday through Friday. All exempts, starting when you go live with CHI, no longer turn in paper timesheets. And exempts do not ever clock in and out. Okay? You'll notice that this time card has all the in and out punches pretty much populated. They're all purple or blue, depending on the resolution on your screen. but it's 8 to 4 Monday through Friday. And that's what we give all our exempts, 8 to 4 Monday through Friday, 80 hours of pay period. It automatically pays them 80 hours, and we never really have to do anything to an exempt's time card except if we need to pay them PTO or we need to pay them holiday or vacation or whatever the case may be. The only time I need to touch an exempt employee's time card is when I am giving them an exception to their regular hours. If 99% of the time they're just paid their 80 hours or whatever their schedule, then I really only have to make sure they're getting paid correctly, and I only need to enter any pay codes whenever there are exceptions. Now, when it comes to an exempt time card, if I have to pay jury duty, bereavement, PTO, vacation, holiday, this is where I can delete an entire row of punches, because exempts are exempt from a lot of what our other hourly employees' rules state. So in this case, if on Monday the 7th, this Lisa had jury duty, and I need to pay that jury duty, or PTO, or bereavement, okay, I'm going to come to the day that I need to put the exception on the time card. I want to get rid of these regular hours because I don't want to pay her reg hours as well as the PTO or jury duty or whatever the case may be. And as I mentioned, exempts, I can use the delete a row key. So I'm going to click on that X. It's asking, do I want to erase the entire row? I click yes. It then takes out those punches. I then come here to my pay code column, and I select jury, and I then put in the amount of 8 hours, or whatever pay code I have to pay that exempt. And I click OK, or I click Save. Now, I don't know whether I'm not sure if your exempts are allowed to take partial days, but if they are, let's say, for instance, on Friday the 11th, this employee is only going to work till noon, so I can come in here. I want that to come up, sorry. I click in there. I want to delete the 4 o'clock. I'm going to say they're only working till 12, but then they want 4 hours of PTO. So I select, again, I added a row. I select PTO. I put in 4, and I save. And now it's showing that on that Friday, the employee has 4 hours of PTO. They work 8 to 12. And down here below, with the jury and everything, I have 4 hours of PTO, 8 hours of jury duty, and 68 hours of reg. Any questions with that?
Just to clarify, it's me as the manager doing this, not the salaried associate making the change on their own time card, right?
In fact, they can't do it.
Okay.
Right.
I have a question as well in regards to that. With KRONOS and the company policy of so many holidays per year, will those automatically be loaded, or do they have to be manually done? And if they do have to be manually done, can they be done, one shot for all of the people that report to you?
I do not believe you're going to get a holiday bucket down here under accruals. This is where you would, down here under accruals, you would have, I think you'll have vacation and PTO, or what do you currently have vacation, and do you have PTO as well?
Personal time and vacation time, correct.
Okay, and I believe those 2 buckets will be there, but I do not believe the holiday bucket is there. I could be wrong, but if it is there, then you would see all 3 buckets. You'd see holiday, personal, and vacation. To your question about can I go in and enter holiday pay code for everyone for all the holidays? No. You can enter it during that particular pay period or the pay period before. But what we do is we run a report. It's called the Future Dated Pay Codes. And any pay code that is entered on a time card that is out 30 days or more on a time card, we send that report. In this case, it would be sent to Rhonda to let her know that, you know, we found these people with pay codes that are out into the future on their time cards, and they would have to be deleted from the time card and entered on the schedule. Now, you can go out to the schedule and enter them all on the schedule, and then it would automatically pay either PTO, vacation, or holiday when that holiday rolled around. But you can't go out to the time card itself and go directly to the time card, say for December 25th and for Thanksgiving and for Labor Day, and put in holiday on the time cards out into the future for those dates. Because we'll get a report, we run it on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and any pay codes that we see out into the future, 30 days or more, those have to be deleted because it slows down the system itself, because of the way KRONOS works. It's looking at anything on anyone's time card and using that to calculate how their PTO should be, what their PTO balance is, what their holiday balance is, or what their vacation balance is. And so that's why we don't push anything out, or we don't allow anything beyond 30 days out on the time card. But you can, as I said, put it out on the schedule, and when that time rolls around, it would automatically pay it. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I'm going to get the schedules here in just a minute. I do have one other thing I want to talk about. At the end of a pay period, when everything is done and over with, and you have to do what we call signing off on employees' time cards. So what you're going to do is you're going to come to the screen that is called Pay Period Close. Okay? On the classic view, it's under the what we call the timekeeping tab, and you would just select Pay Period Close, and it will then, again, load all of your employees just like the Reconcile time card screen did. The difference is this always defaults to previous pay period. You cannot sign off on a time card until the pay period has actually come to an end. So for those pay periods that start on Friday and go to the following second Thursday, I believe, you would not be able to sign off on anyone's time card until that Friday, or whenever that pay period ends on that Thursday at midnight. You would not be able to sign off until Friday morning. For that other pay period that runs Sunday to Saturday, the earliest that you would be able to sign off would be the Sunday after the pay period ends. Okay? Now, the important thing that has to be done when you come to pay period close, and especially when you move to actual CHI KRONOS, which will be on the 18th, the 25th, and 27th of July, when those pay periods come to an end, all of the missed punches that show up on a pay period close, these people that have missed punches here, and I just have 2 right now, if I don't fix those punches, not only do those people not get paid, no one would be able to get paid because we can't process a payroll. And that's basically starting on the 18th of July, when that pay period on the 18th of July comes to an end, which I believe is the 22nd or 21st, something like that, of July. When you sign off on those, we cannot have any missed punches. So before you can sign off on anyone's time card, I would need to come in here and fix these two employees' time cards to make sure that their missed punches are fixed. So I would select these two employees. I would go to their time card. I would come in here, again using my edit log. I would key in whatever time I was told by the employee from the edit log or email. I would make sure everything is paid correctly. I would save it, and I would go to the next employee. I would then fix this edit according to whatever was on the edit log. I would save it. I make sure that she's getting paid correctly, and then I can come back here to pay period close. You'll see that this is still showing me with missed punches. If I hit the refresh button, those will go away. That's indicating to me that I now have, basically, there's nothing left in my missed punch column. I then would select my employees, and I'm just going to select a few here. I am then going to go into their time card, and I am going to make sure that everyone is basically getting paid correctly and looking and making sure that their time looks correct, that everything is on their time card that should be on their time card, and I would go through each and every time card to make sure everything is ready to go. Once I have checked everyone's time card, I come back out here to pay period close. I select my people. I then come up here to approvals. If I am an editor with sign-off, then I would have sign-off under approvals. I then click sign-off. It's asking me, are you sure you want to sign off? I click yes. Then all I need to do is click refresh. And once I do, I should have check marks next to every person that I just signed off on. If I don't have a check mark here, if there was something that, if I highlighted all these people and one or two people did not have a check mark here, I would want to go to my group edit results. And here you'll see I did a sign off on the 8th. Okay? It's telling me it's complete, and right now it's telling me I have 7 total people that I signed off, and I have 7 successes. If I had any errors, it would tell me that I had a failure, and next to it would say details. I would click on details, and it would tell me why that person didn't get signed off. For the most part, and I would say 99.9% of the time, as long as you fixed all of the missed punches before you sign off, everyone will have a check mark under the column that says signed off. If you leave a missed punch there, everybody else will get signed off, but that particular person would not get signed off. And as I mentioned earlier, if there are missed punches here left in this column, if you try to sign off, and sure, you can sign off on everyone that doesn't have a missed punch, but we can't even process payroll for anyone if you have missed punches left on someone's time card. So that's why you need to try and be getting in there every day or every other day so that come the end of your pay period, you only have a couple days worth of punches that you need to fix. And hopefully, if everybody's been doing their job correctly, you won't have any missed punches, and you can just come in here and make sure everyone's time cards and edits are completed, and then you can sign off on them. Are there any questions with that? Now, you have the ability, should you not be here on a day when you have to sign off on someone's time card, you have the ability to do what we call supervisor delegation. In Classic View, supervisor delegation is found under the General tab here, and it's found under Actions. Okay? When you select Actions, you get supervisor delegation. In the Navigator screen, I'll let that load here for a minute. In Classic, under the General tab, you'll see Actions. You select Actions, and it brings you to this screen. In Navigator, your supervisor delegation is over on the right-hand side, the separate, what we call widget. You just click on it, and it will open up the supervisor delegation screen, as you can see here under Actions, which looks exactly like the one in Classic. So the screens are the same. How you get to it is just a little different. You just have to find supervisor delegation and click on it, and it will open up a separate tab for you. From here, you just select the supervisor delegation link. It will open up a screen here for you to pick a delegate that you have already spoken with, because obviously if you're going to be gone, you need to make sure there's somebody that's going to be around that can help you with doing edits for your people as well as signing off for your people. So you're going to discuss this with the person that you're going to find out if they can help you, because you don't want to just go out here, pick somebody, and hope they're going to be around the same time you are. Okay? So under the delegate screen here, you find the employee that you have asked to help you, and I'm just going to pick Charlotte here. And then what you do is you give it a range of dates, and this is something that is just a temporary thing, just a couple days to a couple weeks. This is not something that you do from now until the end of time. This is just a temporary delegation. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick today's date so that we can see what it looks like. Okay, because I have to show you the whole process here. You would normally pick the days you're going to be gone, or the days that you need Charlotte to help you with your edits and sign off. I'm just going to do a couple days here. I'll do the 8th through the 10th at this point. There's nothing here to change. Yours is going to say 63 editor with sign off. So that's your identifier number, number 63. And so you just pick the name, you put in the start and end date, and you do save and close. Now Charla will get an email in her Outlook that tells her that, you know, you've asked her to be a delegate for you. Here is the request that Charla would get. It's telling you basically what I filled out on that screen. It's Bobby is who I've logged in as. And so it's saying Bobby's asked you to be a delegate for these dates. So Charla would have to log into the system. So she's going to log into the system here, because what she has to do is she has to accept the delegation. Now, depending on, again, if you're logging into Classic, you would come here to General and come into the inbox. I've logged in as Charla. Here is the delegation request from Bobby Abbott. All I need to do is double-click on that, and it will open up the screen that basically is the same information that was kind of in that email. You'll see that the system automatically defaults to accept because, like I said, you're going to talk to the person before this happens. All she needs to do is do save and close. Then I, who delegated to her, would receive an email telling me that she's accepted my delegation. Now I'm going to log out here as Charla so that I can show you what will happen, because I have to log out to log back in to show you the process here. Now you'll notice one other thing that's up here besides my time card and schedule and so on. You'll see a switch role. And I've logged in as Charla because that's who I logged in as to show you this process. Charla now has this switch role link because when she logs in, these are all her people. When she needs to see my people, she just selects switch role. She then selects Bobby Abbott, because that's who she's delegated to. Then she selects switch role, and now what happens is it tells her that she's basically logged in as Bobby Abbott, and now this is showing you all of Bobby's employees who she can now come in here and do whatever edits need to be done for them. And she can then also go into pay period close and sign off on anyone that she needs to sign off on. And then on the, what I think I have the date going until the 10th, when she logs in on the 11th, she no longer will have the access to Bobby's people. So that's why you just do it for a short period of time, a day, 2 days, whatever the case may be. Any questions with that? And there are job aids that Rhonda has, and again, that should be out on one of your home pages, CHS home pages, under some folder. I'm not sure which one she put it under, but she would have that information if you don't already know where those are. Okay. I've logged back in as Bobby. I have just one other thing a couple other things I want to show you. Be short on time here for schedules, but I'll try and show you that in just a minute. Reports. There's not a lot of reports out there for you. There's a lot of what we call canned reports. The canned reports are basically what KRONOS has created. And to get to those reports, you can come up here to General and select Reports. Under Navigator, if you're in Navigator, again, Reports is a separate link. You just click on it, and it will bring you to the same screen that I'm in now in Classic View. And then everything else works the same. I'm just going to open up all here, and this will show you all the reports that you have access to. Okay? Any of the reports that you have CHI in front of, those are just some reports that we've created. They give you a little more information than what the KRONOS reports are, able to manipulate them a little more. Some of these other ones that don't have CHI in front of them, those are all the canned reports that KRONOS has. Okay? And just to show you how to run a quick report here, you'll see some reports that have Excel after the name of the report. Here we have employee hours by labor account, and then I have employee hours by labor account Excel. One of them is a PDF report, which means it's just a flat file. The other one means I can run it into an Excel format if I wanted to be able to manipulate, add columns, delete rows, and that kind of thing. So I'm just going to show you how to run this one because it's run a little differently than a PDF form. Now, I'm going to run it for all of my home employees. And I'm going to put in a time period here because I don't have anything in the current pay period. I'm going to have to go back a few months here. I'm going to go back. I'll just type in a date here. I'm going to do 3/9/2014. Normally I should be able to pull up a calendar, but for some reason it's, there we go, should come up when I click on that. So I can select my range of dates. Now this is showing me that all the pay codes I have access to will show up in my report. If I didn't want all of these pay codes in here, I could remove the ones I don't want to show up in there. Now the one important thing is, even though I selected an Excel spreadsheet report, if I don't change the format, it will not run as an Excel spreadsheet. So I need to change the format to XLS. And once I've done that, I can now run my report. Now, I can come out here And if I don't refresh this screen, I could sit here all day and I would never find this to finish. It would just sit in waiting all day long if I just sat here. It would never change. So that's why I need to, as soon as I come out here, click refresh status. Not sure why this failed. But I should be able to click refresh status and it would change my status from waiting to complete. I'm not sure what's wrong in my training database today. So let me try and pick another one. See if I can run the PDF report. So again, I'll try this with these dates. Now, when I pick a PDF report, I have no other choices here. It's only going to run in a PDF form. So I don't need to change that. The only thing I would change is how I want, what pay codes I want to include in here, and my date ranges and so on. Again, I hit Run Report. All my reports are failing in my training database, so I have an issue there. I'll need to contact our IT group. So unfortunately, I can't show you what they look like, and I apologize for that. The important thing is, and I know one reason what happened with my Excel spreadsheet, I moved a little quick on that one. When I pick my Excel spreadsheet, not only do I put in my range of dates, and I also need to change my Excel format. What I need to do so that I get it in an Excel format is I need to email the report to whoever is getting it. So I'm just going to put in my email address here. I click OK. That will automatically take me out here to this screen where I should, again, it failed for me and I apologize, but I would want to hit refresh status, and as soon as the report completed, it would come to me in my email. So I apologize that I can't get these to run today, and I'll have to find out why, and I'll hopefully get them fixed by Thursday on the next training. But again, these are the reports that you have out here. Every time you select a report, again, depending on which report, if you ever pick one with Excel after the name, the thing you have to remember is once you fill out this information, you need to make sure you change it to XLS, and then make sure you email it to yourself or whoever needs the report. Don't click Run Report when you're running an Excel spreadsheet, because you won't get the ability to manipulate it if you run it instead of email it to yourself. Okay? Questions with any of that? And I apologize, I can't show that to you. Schedules. For those who want to add schedules for your employees, I came up here to timekeeping and I went to Schedule Editor. This will pull up my schedule for the current time period. It's very simple to add schedules if you want to add schedules for your employees. When you first come out here, the only people that will have schedules will be your exempt employees. They will have that schedule of 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. Now, as I was mentioning, I'll show you how to enter a schedule first, and then I will talk about entering pay codes. And I know I only have 9 minutes, so I'm going to go very quickly with this. But there are job aids on how to enter schedules as well. So I'm just going to pick some employees here. I'm going to pick these 3 employees. And as long as I'm giving them the same schedule, I can select as many employees as I want and create a schedule for the same, as long as it's the same schedule, same shifts, all at one time for however many employees are getting the same schedule. So these three are going to be working basically 7 to 2:30 Monday through Friday. So I've selected these three, and once I get them highlighted, I just do a right click, and I'm going to add pattern, shift, or pay code. This brings me to this screen, which is called the pattern editor screen. And we have a lot of patterns already created out there. So I'm going to click on the insert pattern button. And I'm going to look for the time that says 7 to 2:30, so that would be 7 to 14:30. Doesn't look like I do. Supposed to. So if I don't have a schedule pattern out there, what I can do is I can come in here, click on Monday, and I'm just going to put in 7 to 2:30 p. And then I'm going to tab over to the next screen or next cell. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to do a right click and I'm going to do a copy. And then I'm going to come to Friday and I'm going to highlight to Tuesday. I'm going to do a right click. I'm going to paste. And I now have my schedule in there of 7 to 2:30 Monday through Friday. Now I need to start this at the beginning of the pay period. Now my pay period begins on Sunday the 6th. So I need to come up here and say I want the schedule to start on the 6th. My pattern start date should be equal to or earlier than, meaning that if I had to pick the schedule pattern out there, it probably would have a date of like 2005 or 2006 or whatever when we first created those. As long as my pattern start date is the same as my work start date, I'm fine. If it wasn't, I would just make it the same. I would make it the same as my pattern, or I'd make my pattern start date the same as my work start date. Okay? Then I can determine, do I want this to go on forever, meaning from now until I change it? Or is this only going to go for the next 3 months or the next, however long I need this to go? And if this was for a specific number of weeks, maybe it ended on the 27th of September, I could put an end date in there if I wanted to. But I'm going to leave it as a forever schedule. And then once I have that all filled out, I click OK. And now I have my pattern in here of 7 to 2:30, Monday through Friday for these three employees. This is showing me that this is unsaved yet. It's still in. It hasn't been saved yet, as long as it's in red, and I need to save it. And I may get another message that says the schedule patterns are being applied. Just click refresh in a few minutes, so I just click OK. I should be able to, as soon as I click out of that refresh screen, just come up here and click on refresh, and then it will apply those accordingly. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, when somebody asks, can I go out there and put in all of my holidays? I said you can if you do it on your schedule. So, for instance, let's just say we have a holiday coming up on the 14th here. And so what I would do is I would have to go, however, I'd have to do this individually. I couldn't do this like I did the schedules. I have to do each one individually. I would come here and I would do a right click and I'd add a pay code. I would come up here, and I don't believe I have holiday in here, so I'm just going to use PTO. I'm going to do PTO, and I'm going to put in how many hours I want to pay that for PTO. I'm going to put 8 hours. Now, if I had a schedule in here for this employee where they normally work, say, 7 to 2:30 or 8 to 5 or whatever the case may be, I'd want to override the shift, and I'd want to make sure it's the whole shift. But since I don't have that, I don't need to worry about that. And then it's just asking what time do they normally start their shift. I'm just going to say they started at 8. And if this were more than one day, I could say I want to repeat it for 2 days. I could put 2 here, and it would give me the PTO or a holiday for 2 days, but obviously we're just going to make it 1 day. And I would do that for that employee, and I'd do the same thing for the next employee, where I add a shift, a pay code, I'd add PTO, 8 hours, start at 8, so on and so forth, and I'd put that in there. And I could go out here, I'd save this, and then if I had another holiday in September, I could put in either a specific date, like Monday the 2nd, if that's what Labor Day is, and so on. I could come out there and pull up the dates that the holidays need to go in on and add those for each of those days. And here's why I say if you do it that way, I'm going to pull up these 2 employees and go to their time card. Once it's in the schedule, it will automatically pay the employee that holiday or that vacation or that personal time. So if I put it on the schedule, it will automatically populate the time card when that time period rolls around. Same with the next employee. Okay? So you can enter pay codes on the schedule, and it will put it on the time card when that pay period rolls around. Don't go out and put it on the time card, because as I said, we have to delete it, and then we have to have you enter it on the schedule anyway. Okay? I know I went through this last part real quick, and again, I apologize that those reports didn't work. That really, they were working fine the other day, so I don't know what happened. I'll contact my IT group and find out what's going on. But are there any questions with anything that we've gone over today?
The exceptions report form from CHI that you showed online, where specifically can we find that? Is it on our CHS intranet, or is it strictly on CHI intranet?
This edit log? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Rhonda has this as well as all the job aids for you, and it should be out on your CHS homepage somewhere. I'm not quite sure. I don't know where she's put them, so you may want to contact her.
I believe it's in her payroll in KRONOS.
I'm sorry?
She has it on the intranet in payroll.
Okay.
And there's a KRONOS button.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so those job aids as well as the scheduling job aids are out there for you as well. Okay? All right. We've come to 4 o'clock. I'll stay on if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, you're free to go. And thank you for joining.
Thank you.